Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday night. I was supposed to have a baby, and this is I think our 38th episode where we are going to be interviewing, I are going to be interviewing Adelle Bryski, who is the force behind One World Awareness. I've been a longtime admirer of her work, her account, and all of the different pieces that she likes to put out on her account. I think it's so important what she's doing in terms of bringing awareness to infertility. And I'm just so honored to have her. In a number of months ago, there was a point where I asked suggestions from all of you as to, who you wanted me to bring on here, and asking about the different kinds of people and also the different kinds of accounts. And so this was, Adelle was one of the suggestions, and she was actually on my list as well. And from that list that you gave me, I'm actually now booked out almost every single week from now until I think it's like April or something like that. It's pretty crazy. But this is really just something that I love to do, love to bring you different perspectives on fertility, different voices, and I'm really just enjoying these. I love these interviews because it really, you get to see the personal perspective from the individual and all sorts of different kinds of people who come on here. Okay, here she is. So yeah, this is going to be really great, and she's phenomenal. So I can't wait for you guys to meet her. Here she is. She's coming, and she's there.
Yeah,
she's
here
there.
I am.
So nice to see you in person, as opposed to like just as a person in person, as opposed to like just in stories or on your page.
I know what you're saying.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you, Adelle. Please tell everyone. I mean, look, I gave everyone already a little bit of introduction as to who you are, but please tell everyone a little bit about you and why you decided to start your handle, One World Awareness.
So first I want to say thank you to Amy for just inviting me to do this conversation. I feel like it's so important, and every time I do a live or I do a talk, I feel like I'm bringing purpose into this challenge, and I feel like that's so important, because it could feel like, why is this happening to me? And I connect when I'm helping someone going through it and something like this. So I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity.
You're welcome. It's really my pleasure. So nobody wants to hear me talk anymore. So I'm giving the floor to you.
All right. So hi, everybody. Some people know me, some people don't. So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Adelle Bryski, and I'm married to Mendy. And we're actually both from California. It works out well with, visiting family and all that. It's nice. I could see how sometimes it just is a hard thing when like two families live, far apart from each other. So I'm really grateful for that. And we were just like any other ordinary couple, thinking that we're just going to have a family. I remember when we were dating, and even through our engagement, it was very much a topic in our conversation. I don't know if that is the norm in a young couple, but us especially, we were just super excited in having a family. We would talk about what we would do and how they would look, who would they look like, me, him, and like we were just so optimistic, and we never thought for a second, I'm saying this because to emphasize on how much the shock was. We never thought in a second infertility was going to be in our life. And putting that aside, as an individual, this dream of having a family started at such a young age. And going through this challenge, I see with my own eyes, with my nieces, I'm a preschool teacher, and I could go into that later, but I see how the dream and the hope of being a mother starts at such a young age. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I kind of think about that, and go into a mindset of like, I was that child with a doll, or, you know, pretending, doing, you know, what's the number one thing a preschooler loves to do is house, right? You're the
Right.
mommy, I'm the daddy, like, and I see it, and it's, since now going through it, I see how it starts at such a young age. So I am 27. Yeah, sometimes I forget, but I'm 27, and I know for 22 years that was everything, that I did not think, you know, you hear in school, or you hear these stories like, oh, once there was a couple who didn't have children, and it's a miracle story, right? And or in the Torah you hear the Avram and Sarah. So these are all figurative stories, but you
Yep.
never think it's going to be you. You never think it's just
Yep.
going to be you. And even telling you right now, I still have a hard time connecting that this is our story. A lot
Wow.
of times it just feels normal, like our life is normal, but it's not. And so
Can I
growing up,
can I ask you, Adele? I mean, look, this is, you know, what you're saying right now in terms of like, you know, the typical things that kids do when they play house, and when they, like, it's very typical. It's not like kids are doing anything abnormal. It's just like they're
it's
modeling what they see
natural.
their parents doing. So their parents are taking care of them, and so they're modeling that in terms of their play. But I get, my question for you is, do you think that there could have been anything different along the way in terms of your education, you know, as when you were
Yeah,
dating,
yes,
or when you were
yeah,
single, like
yeah. That's
beforehand,
why I'm
that
doing what
sort of could have prepared you a little bit more? Not
yes,
to
that's
say, okay, go
yes,
ahead. Now I'm
definitely.
gonna, go ahead.
Definitely, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I want to educate people. I don't, my number one purpose of doing what I did, why I just spoke out and what I'm doing is because, I mean, I don't, should I go in the timeline, or should I just answer this question and we could go back?
Totally your choice. Your choice.
The way we were put in the dark with so much shock, and like what just hit us, and also thinking like we were the only ones, like we, on that time of when it just started, and realizing it was such a dark time that I can't even really go back, because it was just so overwhelming, so
Too
much
hard.
trauma, so much, it's just all dark to me.
I'm sorry.
So my goal is just that no other couple should just feel like the way we felt. And I think over the past 2 years, 3 years, the conversation has been so much more normalized. And I don't think, I mean, it changed drastically. I'm saying we found out 4 years ago, and already it's changed.
Yeah.
But when we were going through it, it was not spoken about, and it was just crushing because of the, you know, I think a lot what you're saying, if we were kind of already had some type of
Right. If you
conversation
had
beforehand,
like, right, right.
we
If you
wouldn't
had an
have been so blown.
Right. If you had an inkling, like if anyone might have said to you growing up, or even at some point during your
Yeah,
schooling or afterwards in seminary, like 1 out of every 8 couples will experience infertility, it means that 7 out of 8 times it's not going to happen, but there still is that possibility. At least it would have been something in the
yeah,
back of your head that you might have thought about.
exactly. Yeah. So
Okay, there,
yeah.
look, that's right. That's why we're having these conversations. That's why you started your account. Okay, so I sort of interrupted, and I apologize,
No, no,
but
no, it's good.
keep
Yeah,
going. Keep
yeah,
going.
it's all good. So I was talking about how, oh yeah, so we were just that ordinary couple. We just thought that we would have this family, and what I was telling you about is how we were just, it was a very big topic in our conversation. We were super excited about it, super, super excited. And I remember kind of what you're saying about like, oh, I think I probably heard once is like, oh, you're not supposed to, you know, it's all up to Hashem, about you shouldn't really talk about how many kids
Right.
you want, even though I hear it all the time. Like, oh, I want, you know, this amount of kids. And in my head, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you know, I just have this whole other perception. But at the time, I remember telling many, like, you know, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I would want 8 kids. And like, we agreed on it. And we just thought in our minds we're going to have this big family and it's just going to be easy. We didn't know we were coming our way, what was coming our way. And after a year of nothing happening, lots of pregnancy tests, lots of failed pregnancy tests, I think that's also something that's just is very normal for someone that's going through infertility. That's someone that just doesn't know like how many you could just go through and the expenses of it. And it's like, okay, let's just pop in another box. So, you know, there goes $30. I mean, we probably spent a lot on pregnancy tests, unfortunately, but we found out our situation, and I could say from that day, our life has changed and it will never be the same. That day when it will never be the same. And not only our lives are completely changed, and like what I said before, I was like how I couldn't go back because it's just such a dark time. I lost my whole entire being, like my whole identity, my whole character. It left me. And I just remember just feeling really out of sort, not connected, lost, like just very uncomfortable. I'm pretty sociable now, you could see, but before I like how I was saying before, that time was really dark, but I could remember the times where I just didn't want to get out of the house. I was embarrassed because I knew in our culture at a certain point, you're supposed to be pregnant, right? And I was embarrassed that I didn't have that pregnant stomach that everyone wants to see, you know, like
everyone expects.
Yeah, they're expecting me to have to be pregnant. And I felt so ashamed and embarrassed that I just didn't want to go to weddings and all this stuff, all these public outings. And once I realized, like, I just feeling like I can't talk without crying, and like looking at pictures of us when, you know, of our wedding, like I knew, okay, like I need to go speak to someone. And that's one thing I really wanted to emphasize talking to you is, if anyone is going through this and they don't think they need a therapist at any point of time going through it, I think they really need to think about it, because this situation is so huge, overwhelming, so big for our human mind and heart to just figure out. It is such a complex challenge to deal with so many emotions, and a lot of times you can't connect to what you're feeling, what happened. And there was a time, I'm saying during that dark time, I was able to heal speaking to a therapist and getting to the place of where I am now.
Amazing.
Yes. So I feel like that I really want to emphasize that going to therapy is not a bad, you know, nothing's wrong with you. You're going through such a big situation. Correct. And please do yourself a favor and give yourself that time to just process and heal. And yeah.
Absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of, you know, look, a good therapist is a place where you feel safe. It's a place where you know that you can share anything and everything, and that person will hear you. Okay, you like froze for a second, but you're back. Oh. That person will hear you without judgment and really give you tools to be able to handle whatever challenges you're dealing with in your life.
Yeah.
And so therapy is a huge bonus, and is something that everyone who's struggling, if you even think that you might want it, you should try to look for something to do.
I know now, like I don't go on a consistent basis just because I don't think I do, but I know as soon as that, like what you're saying, that unstableness of just feeling like that morning coming on and just having that heartbreak and crying, it's just time to talk to someone.
Absolutely. And you were saying to me when we spoke beforehand that this time, like being infertile or having the diagnosis, you were comparing it to like being in a foreign country. Like you were saying that. So explain that analogy a little bit more, because I think it's a really great way about describing to people how it feels.
Right. So as soon as we that day that we found out, we were thrown into this world called infertility, and we were, I think, 24, 23, innocent, naive, fresh, and just thrown into this world. And Amy, I wanted to also emphasize before going into that how important I feel. Like, I'm saying there's no space of time where you could just kind of process. It's like immediately like, okay, you got to go to this test, you got to go to this test, medical, doctor appointments, boom, 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 and you're trying to deal with the shock.
Running.
You can't. There's no time to do that. And I remember the first time it really hit me. Like I'm saying, each doctor visit, like you're still hanging on to that part of you that always thought, about that you're gonna have this family, and then it's slowly coming in like that. No, 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 no. And I remember the first time it really hit me, and this doctor, we were sitting. Anyone that's going through infertility knows what I'm talking about. You're both sitting in front of a doctor's desk, and I don't know if we went through a lot of doctors, and a majority of them just say it how it is. They don't have compassion. They deal with so many different patients, and they just say these things. But meanwhile, you're dealing with this such naive, innocent couple who is going through so much. And I believe that every single doctor, infertility clinic, anything needs to have some type of social worker there. I feel it so much because you go to a hospital and God forbid someone's going through, a family's going through, some family members going through trauma, a tragedy or whatever. There's a social worker helping this family process it. And I don't understand why this should be any different. Why should this couple have to just hear it how it is and no one there to console them or, hold them and say it's going to be okay? And I feel it so passionately that, like, I could legit go back to that time where I was sitting in front of that doctor, and the doctor just started telling me about IVF. But meanwhile, it's just like, I never heard of this before. What do you mean? I'm supposed to be pregnant? What? And I just started crying right in front of him. And that was the first time I actually felt like, okay, we're not having a baby anytime soon. And I wish I just had someone there holding me and being like, I'm saying, he's like, okay, I'll leave and I'll come back when you're ready. And and you got to understand, like, oh, I'm sure some of you who are not going through it, it's like, oh, what about your husband? Like, you guys should just comfort each other. You're both, at that time at the beginning, you're both dealing with this shift, this trauma, this
Shock
of loss. And you can't expect both of them to start. I mean, now, yes, after years going through it, you learn how to deal with it in your own way, and then you could start comforting each other. But at that time, you're both like trying to deal with this huge shock. And I'm saying I cried the whole way home, and I really didn't want to go back to that doctor until I was able to regain my strength. But I feel like at that time that I wish I just had some, even now, I just wish that they would have a person there that is help, right?
Yeah, look, right. I mean, right. Some clinics do. They sort of have someone on staff that you can speak to at different points, but not necessarily sort of in an acute way, like after you get bad news. And like, some clinics don't. Yeah,
there's doctors that, we've gotten really, really, again, I'm saying your audience is half, right? Those that are, those that aren't. Like, I'm saying these conversations these doctors have with you at such a young age, 24, 23, and they're just saying, this percentage, that percentage, 20, 10%, oh, maybe you should start like looking through adoption and or looking through other things, and they just don't have any heart. It's so mechanical. It's so robotical, and they don't understand that they're telling us news that are breaking us every single time, and those are pieces of us that are just going away. I will tell you now that we're just not the same people. I mean, some of us has stayed, but a lot of it, a big part of us has,
Right.
it's gone. It's
Right.
gone from going through so much heartbreak.
Right.
And I can tell you that it's like the same thing as if someone is telling you that someone passed. Like I'm saying that is, I've had a few family members, unfortunately, that have passed through the years, and I could just relate that sadness. Every time I cry, it is compared to that of just that mourning of sadness of loss. And it's always in me. It's always either the conscious or subconscious. Even if I think I'm good, I'm going here, I'm going there, I don't feel it, I'm good, it's there, even if I can't connect with it.
Right. It's interesting because a lot of people have said to me, like, how can you have an account? How can you begin to even try to cover infertility and pregnancy loss and, all these other things? Like, how can you do all of that? Like, you should probably just focus on one thing. And the reality is, I was like, look, yes, obviously, practically, there's a very big difference between someone who is desperately trying to get pregnant and someone who has been pregnant and then lost that pregnancy. I understand those are two very different medical diagnoses, but underlying both of those things are pain
Exact,
and
and loss.
loss and grief. And that's the connection, unfortunately. And that's why so much of all of this is intertwined. Infertility is so intertwined with loss because it's a loss of the dream of what you hoped things were going to be.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people kind of label us as like, oh, they just don't have kids. They don't understand the impact of that every day, day to day. It impacts our life. And I have a good story to express how that grief is, how that loss is real. Like what you're saying is someone that went through a pregnancy loss, they did have, it was physical, it was a physical loss. But even though I never truly lost, like I'm saying, our kids are figurative, they feel so real to me. Their loss, their absence is so real to me, and people don't understand that. And that's where triggers play in, is you feel like, where are they? They're supposed to be there, and it's so real. And it's crazy because they never were real, but in my head it's like
Right.
they were supposed to be here.
Right. You
Because
were
if it wasn't for infertility,
right.
we would have 2 to 3 kids by now.
Right.
So this past Shabbos, my sister-in-law was reading to my nieces a story called The Invisible String. And it was, my sister-in-law wanted to teach my niece about, like, even though they're not always together, they have this invisible string to connect to. And it went on to, like, giving, in the story, it was giving different scenarios, different people, and then it started talking about, people in heaven, you still have an invisible string to there. And then after the story was over, she, was asking my niece, like, give me a few examples of people in your life that you had that invisible string to, and she did. And then they turned to me and they asked me, like, who, like, where is that invisible string for you? And I promise you, it didn't even take a second.
Right. Right. Because
I thought I wanted to say my kids, our kids, because that's how real it is. That's how real a connection is. And people don't realize how real it is. And that's why it's so frustrating, because if they knew how real it was, they would be more sensitive. And I'm talking about friends and family as well. Like, I'm living with that connection all the time, and it's so heartbreaking that they can't get it because they can't connect to it because it was never real.
Right. Right. It's the same thing when people talk about, when we talk about and when we talk about IVF transfers, embryo transfers, and when people say, well, I lost my baby, and then, the backlash is, well, that was just an embryo, it wasn't a baby.
Right.
Or the individuals who have, or the families who have an early miscarriage, like, oh, that was just an early miscarriage, it wasn't a real baby. I mean, all of these things are totally preposterous. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
it's a baby, or the idea of a child, or the idea of a family is whatever it is in your mind. There doesn't need to be this definitive, tangible, like there's not like there's this line
Right.
in the sand. Like, it's only considered to be real, and you're only allowed to have real feelings if it looks like this. Like, it just doesn't work like that.
Exactly. It's very frustrating because you only understand it if you're going through it. And that's, I think that it was so helpful to after that dark time and trying to reconnect to a part of me. I thought it was so healing for me to start talking. And once I started talking, I started realizing, oh, this person's going through it. That one's, oh, we're not the only ones. And then I started getting, I spoke to this lady, and she mentioned the word grief to me. And I was like, wow, like, yes, grief. That's so much of what someone is going through with infertility. It's mourning and grief. And the moment you step out of your house, actually, I feel like sometimes if you really connect to, like, oh, my house is silent right now. Like right now, even as I'm talking to you, I don't have to run and be like, oh, sorry, 1 second, my kid is one. You don't hear anything. It's silent. And what was I saying? Sorry, I got like,
Oh, no, no.
oh,
Yeah. Just about the fact that you don't have these other things that are pulling at you, that you're feeling that.
right. So I could feel triggered even within my own house of, like, I have 2 bedrooms. It took me maybe 2 years to actually set up my other bedroom because it just, like, I didn't have that motivation. And a lot of times I catch myself thinking, like, oh, what about if I'll be pregnant at that time? Like, I do flowers, which is another thing that really healed me and took me out of that misery, thanks to a friend that just, like, told me, why don't you just go do that? And getting involved with that was a good distraction. And
And your work is beautiful, by the way.
oh,
I'm
thank
gonna
you.
link it. I'm gonna tag it afterwards so that people can see. Your work is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. So that was also a healing factor. But yeah, I mean, it took time for me to set up that second bedroom. It just, oh, what I was saying was that I still don't want to accept a job that's like 7 months from now, because, like, flowers are like very strenuous. It's labor. And I'm like, it's beyond me of, like, how can I mean, I guess I'm glad because I still carry that hope. But, like, yeah, I am happy, I guess, that I have that. But it's just crazy that how you always carry on. And then it's like, wait a minute, like 4 years ago I was saying, like, oh, I didn't want to do that because I was scared that I would be pregnant. But it's like,
Look, I think really, the essence of what you're trying to say is the fact that it really, it's something that's constantly on your mind, that you're
yeah,
constantly thinking back and thinking forward, like planning, like the what
yeah,
if,
it's so, that's
and
what I'm
then
saying.
thinking about the what ifs even from before.
Yeah, it's just so many different thoughts. And that's why I feel like sometimes it gets so complex. And once it gets so complex and too overwhelming, that's when you should just go see a therapist to, like, help yourself recalculate and, like, heal from that overwhelming situation of feelings.
Definitely. Can you, like, so then at what point during all of this did you decide to start your account, and why did you call it One World Awareness? Like, why, what's the root? What's the meaning behind that?
So in the beginning, we were very quiet about it. Like, we were told, like, just keep it down low. Like, no one, just how the couple is just entered, like, into this world of infertility, you bring your friends and your family with you, and they don't know what to do. They don't, like, I'm saying, I'm so grateful for all these organizations that helped us navigate, and now, like, we understand more. But in the beginning, you just don't know where to start. It's like, you're just thrown into it.
Right.
So, so family and friends are carried with you, and I think it's so important for them to learn as well how to support, because they're just the closest people in your lives. And
Absolutely.
just like how we didn't choose to be in this challenge, I'm saying, and they don't even get, what do they get, like 5%, 10%? And sometimes I do feel guilty about it, like that they can't just be that normal family that doesn't have to feel bad to do this or to do that. But I do feel like they have a little bit of responsibility to show that support. And in the beginning, we weren't telling anyone. And slowly I started writing. As you can see, like on my page, I like to
Yes.
write, and I was sending it to certain people that I felt safe with. And then I started just telling random people, like, oh, this is what we're going through. And I'm like, when we were going on the plane, and there was a stewardess sitting next to me, and she was telling me about her journey, and that voice started coming out. I remember we went to Hawaii for one of our anniversaries, and I just had this push. I was sitting there in the lobby, and there was an entertainer, and there was all these kids, and I just felt the need to tell the crowd. I went to the microphone, and I told them, I said, listen, I know you're on vacation, and probably right now you just don't want to have your kids with you, but just, we're going through infertility, and I want you to just know that they're a gift. And a lot of them came to me, and actually one person there was there because she just lost one of her daughters, and she came crying to me, and she told me, I'm so happy that I was just able to, have a child.
Wow.
So that's when the voice of me started coming more and more. And I met a lady, and she was just super validating, and I never got to speak to someone like that, and she was really edging me on. And I did my first podcast, and from that podcast I learned there's so many people going through it, and we made like friends from it, and support and resources. And I was like, wow, I'm actually like making a difference. Again, at that time it was just starting the conversation.
So this was like 4-ish years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, when I did that podcast, we were waiting for some results, and a few weeks later we got negative results, and it was heartbreaking. But that feeling of purpose, that I have a voice of change, that I could help people going through it with, being their voice. Like, I felt like I'm sort of like an advocate for these people that are just feeling shameful. And I'm like, no, we are the strong ones. Why do we have to stay in the dark? Why do we have to feel like we can't say that, no, I'm going through infertility and I'm fighting for a child? Because if anything, we should be recognized for our strength. And I don't feel like it's something that we should be ashamed of. I feel like anything, we should be, it's something like proud to just share and not be shameful about it. There's no shame in it. There's no shame. And I don't
No shame whatsoever. And there was nothing that you did that caused it. There was nobody's fault. So therefore there's no reason for shame. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you, I mean, so what is the one world awareness? What is that? Where does that come from?
So my podcast, I mean, it's on SoundCloud. My link was on there. I could repost it, but I didn't prepare. I just started blurting things out. I mean, I'll be interested to listen to it again. But during that talk, I started talking about one world. And basically what I was saying is that if people that are not going through it are starting to get educated and know what life is like going through it, and how they could be sensitive towards it and support that, and then we don't have to feel like we're in separate worlds. Like, how was that? Did I ever, I'm saying, I know I was going through a lot of topics. Did I ever say about that new place, that how you,
The foreign place? No, no, we didn't get back to that. Okay, do this for, well, do both because it's all
so
intertwined.
yeah, I mean, like what I was saying before is that you feel you're, as soon as you find out that you and your husband are going through infertility, it's like you're entering into this new world. Just like how I'm sure a lot of people like to travel over here. You go to Africa, you go to any foreign country, and you just feel removed from there. You feel like a stranger because it's just the language is different, the people's lives are different. So I feel like if if people from both worlds start learning about each other, then it feels more like a, you know, this one world. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of work to do because I'm still feeling that separation.
Yeah, look, but there is still a lot of work to do, but it's, as you yourself said, and I know as well, it's so much better now than it
Yeah,
was four
yeah,
years ago, and even
yeah,
a year ago. I feel like every year we as a community are getting better at sharing these kinds of struggles with the rest of the community,
yeah,
and it's, people are becoming more sensitive, thank God.
yeah. Thank God. That
So,
that sometimes, well,
no, go ahead.
no, sometimes like I feel like since I'm being so, I'm sharing everything, and then someone asks me like, "Oh, do you have any kids?" I'm like, "Wait, I'm spreading awareness. How come you don't know about it?" Like I'm like I. It's funny because I just expect everyone to just remember what I say, but there's just so much to spread. There's still that normal talk of like, "Oh, do you have any kids?" or this and that. Like this is a separate situation, but just an example of a trigger. I had to get tested a few times for COVID, and every single time it's like, "Do you have kids?" And every single time there's just that punch in my heart of like, "Nope, I don't." Or you know,
Why
you
are
go
they
to,
asking you that?
I
Why,
have no idea, and it's like every single time there's, it's just
like,
that
it has
that
no
little.
bearing on anything, getting a COVID test and having children. Like, I don't even understand that at all.
No, but people don't. I'm saying just to open up the eyes, just a simple question
Yeah,
of that. People just say, you know, yes, I do, or whatever. But for me, it's just like I still remember. I still have that. It pained me.
of course, of course, of course. Okay, I'd love to hear also, like, as we're starting to close here, I'd love to hear also about how, what your idea was in terms of this Hanukkah raffle that you put together all on your own, this incredible giveaway for people, for couples who are infertile. I mean, it feels like it's like hundreds of gifts at this point. Like every day I'm
I
just
know,
seeing
it's
more
like
and
this
more and more and more and more. So how did this start? How, like, tell me, like, what was the reason, what was the emphasis, and how did it get rolling? Like, talk to me.
is. Honestly, I think it's from God, that just overall, because like the way it happened was just like so crazy. But last week, it was a few days before Hanukkah. Yeah, so it must have, yeah, it's just a week, a little bit over a week.
I was gonna say
I
it
was,
was it was not that long ago
no,
because I
no, this was
remember. Yeah,
not prepared. I'm not a prepared person. I'm saying that I just go on the go. I'm that type of person. I'm not thinking 2 weeks ahead. I'm more like on the on the
yeah,
spot. But I was just sitting
except
there.
except when you're planning and thinking about taking a job seven months from now.
Exactly.
Except I just want to
Yeah.
say that.
Exactly. That's how much I wanted.
Yes.
Um, but basically, I was just like sitting. I think my husband he wasn't even home. It was like, you know, again, what I was saying, it's just quiet and feeling like that anxiety towards Hanukkah coming, because it's just a very super, I don't know, I think it's just so much about family and kids. All holidays are hard.
Right.
But a random friend of mine, she started voice noting me, and she was saying, "Adele, I'm thinking about you." But it wasn't just the cliche. Like, I know she was coming from a place of heart, and she was just saying, I feel your pain, and there's times when you know that someone just saying it for just comforting, or just, I don't know. There was something very genuine about it. And honestly, from that, it just like the idea shot into my head, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start asking people to give away. I'm starting people to contribute 8 gifts for each night of Hanukkah, and I'll do a raffle, and there'll just be 8 prizes because it feels so good to get a present. And what I was telling you before is that words are words. People can say, I'm thinking about you, I'm supporting you, and then you feel like you forget about them again because every day you're living with it. It's not just when they think about it, it's the couple living it is feeling it all the time. And I just know from a few gifts that I've gotten, it just takes away a little bit of that pain, and it doesn't last long, but it just feels so good to just feel like, okay, I could take a break from it. It's not, as felt. So I thought like, oh, why don't I want to give gifts to, those going through it because it's really healing. And somehow it just started going and going. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get more and more prizes, and we have this amount of couples. I think if I'm, I start to get, I was like, I don't want anyone to not win. I want everyone to get a present. So I became very determined with it. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and it just kept coming. And some people were the sponsors were. Some people were just coming to me and giving me like this amount of money. I'm like, wow, people really do care, and that's what people going through infertility needs, that feeling of care, being seen, like that feeling of being seen. And I think whoever is listening that's not going through it, try to think of ways to see the person going through it. They need that, especially if you're close to them in your life. They need to be seen because they're constantly living with this grief and absence, and also just going out into the world and trying to live their daily life, but also carrying it. I think that's also a very hard thing to learn. And sometimes I can't even keep up, but in the beginning, it's very hard to live your normal life of going to work and all these things. But meanwhile, your whole life is shifting, and it's just chaos. And I still sometimes feel like, okay, I need a moment, I need a day, I need a day or two to just,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that's what inspired me, is just that take away a little bit of their pain. Someone asked me a few days ago, what could I do? I know someone going through it. And at first I was telling her, just tell her you love her with everything. But then I thought, like, it doesn't touch, it doesn't, I started asking her, I'm like, what is she like? And she was telling me what she likes. And then I said, get her something like that, in that area. And for some reason, I'm sure a lot of people could agree with me. It just feels so good to be thought of and to get something, or getting an invite, or just getting seen, because a lot of times you just feel like people forget and you feel alone, and even though other people are going through it, it just gets very lonely.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There is, like I always say, at the end of the day, people want to hear from you, and they want to be able to feel your love. And for every person, that's different, right? Like some people, the just knowing, like if you're far away, or like you're not so close to them, like just hearing that you care about them, that you acknowledge that they're going through something, whether it's infertility or loss, like the words are enough. But the reality is, like, there also are other things that if you know them well enough, or even if you don't, there is something about like actually being able to touch something,
like pamper them,
tangible, something like, if it's like a pamper, and for every person, pamper is different. Like maybe it's like you just happen to, like, drive by this store of teddy bears, and she loves teddy bears, or you saw, like, she loves carrot soup, and so you make a container of carrot soup. Like, it's like for every person it's different.
Even a card. I got a card and I was like, wow, I just got touched from a card.
Right, because who sends
100%.
cards anymore? Nobody. All the card
Like,
businesses are out of business because nobody sends cards anymore. So yes, it's
yeah,
another
simple.
tangible thing. Yeah.
And I think infertility changes you to appreciate such small things. Like, because since you're living in pain so much that when something good comes inside your life, you're just like extra appreciative of it because it's like, the graph with the pie. So like
Yes.
majority of it's pain, and then that, and it just
Yes.
like feeds that, and it feels nice to just get that relief for a day or two.
Amazing. Amazing. Look, Adele, I'm incredibly grateful for
Exactly.
you, for you. Yes. Right.
Yeah. Oh, when we have a
yes,
cleaning
cleaning
lady, it's
lady.
like
Exactly.
we get so excited. It's like, yes, our house is like a hotel. Like we just get it really. That's, even though I resent a lot, and I would never ask for infertility to be in our lives, I do see that I have a different perception of life. I am appreciative of very small things, and I don't get stressed from small things either. Like I'm saying, little stressful things is just like, that's nothing. We have such a big
Right.
other stress. And I also think that yeah, to end off is just like, I sometimes ask, like, why do we have to go through this? And sometimes I get so stuck on it, and I get angry at God, and I get, it's such a hard feeling to get past by. I'm sure you know what I'm saying. Like sometimes
Absolutely.
you just get so stuck in that feeling, and it takes a long time to work through that, either with therapy or um, someone that was talking to me about the giveaway. She was like, you're so amazing what you're doing. Oh,
Yeah. You're back. You're back. You're good.
she was saying it's so amazing what you're doing, and I was telling her, like, this, if I wasn't going through it, it would have happened. So it gives me a sense of purpose of like, oh, this is why I had, Hashem, God wanted me to go through it, because this is what I'm contributing to it. So
Look, I just want to say, like, it's clear that for you that is very helpful. That mantra sort of is very helpful. For a lot of people, it's not very helpful, and they,
no, I'm saying,
no,
trust me,
no,
in a
no,
few
no.
hours I'll feel
Right, right.
pain
That's
again.
exactly. So that's literally exactly what I was going to say. Like this,
Yeah,
I think what you've
I
been
don't
able to do
ever
here.
feel content. Yeah,
Yeah, no, what you've been able to do here tonight is really give people a better understanding of exactly how it feels and all of the ups and the downs and the different
exactly.
range of emotions, and that everything you've been through over the last number of years. I mean, in what could be condensed in a small insta live. But
Yeah,
but
at
I,
one point, I'm saying at one point I could have felt like, oh, I feel like, oh, that this is meaningful, this is bringing purpose. But then in the next 5 minutes, I could just feel like I can't move because I'm just so sad.
right,
Like that's what infertility is. It's just like,
up and down, up and down,
yeah,
up and down, all the time.
it's
Yeah,
never consistent. Yeah,
yeah, and I think you're exactly right. When people know that they care about you, when you know that somebody cares about you, I said that all of those pronouns were all wrong, but you know what I'm trying to say,
yeah,
that it feels better. It feels like people are giving you that hug without the hug, and
yeah,
it's something that you can look at and is tangible, and reminds you not just of words, as you say. It's not that words are empty, but that sometimes, like, you just need a physical something with it, um, because people can just throw out words, and I hear you,
yeah.
and I hear you, and I hear you. Okay, Adele, any last thoughts? Look, I guess for the person, or for the couple who are going through this, who are just starting out on their journey, what
I
what
so
what
tough.
what would you say to them?
I'm honestly just like, it hurts. I'm saying I just could go back. It's just such a hard time, and uh, I I don't think anything that I say could take away what they're saying, like what they're going through. It's just it's not a grounding time. It's not, it's just so overwhelming. And maybe just saying these things gives them that to it. And I feel though a lot of like in the beginning I thought that was comforting, but then I'm saying in California, in where I live, there's not a lot. I feel like we're really spotlighted in the community because there's just not as much. I'm saying in the, let's say the Chabad community, I feel like we're really spotlighted in just like we're that couple that doesn't have a child, and it's really hard. And but so I don't know if I would say that to them, but I just know that if they want to come to me, or they should just find someone to talk to that can relate to them. And I think just to find a therapist to help through that complex, overwhelming feeling.
Amazing. Amazing. Look, I mean, that's exactly right. This is the entire premise of what you're trying to do. And also what I'm trying to do is
Yeah,
to help people feel just a
resources.
little bit less alone. And that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Look, Adele, thank you so
sure,
much. Thank
sure.
you for everything. Thank you for your raw, candid, honest portrayal. I mean, this is your life and it's hard, and you've been
Yeah, I
able
wanted to.
to.
Now looking at my notes that I jotted down, I have a story that really. I don't know if you do you want to leave, or it just
No,
it's
yeah, we have it. We have another couple of minutes. Go ahead.
okay. So it just goes to. I'm saying those little. There's could be those little triggers that like someone asking you, "Are you pregnant?" Or going to the doctor and saying, "Yeah, like, are you pregnant? Do you have kids?" But a few years ago, I was having. Well, everyone has their stress spot physically and with their emotions, and mine is my stomach. I don't know. Everyone has a different.
Mine also, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We should talk about it, but
we should.
so one day I had really bad pain. I called my husband. We went to the emergency room. I ended up in the hospital. And the next day, remember, this is like on high time. Like I'm saying now, I'm able to like process more.
Of course,
But in the beginning, it takes
of
time
course,
to really get adjusted into the world
of
of what
course.
you're talking about. And I believe that's what landed me up there is just too much stress, and my body couldn't handle it anymore. Couldn't handle
Right.
it anymore. And the hospital was overbooked, and that the first night, like I was in a shared room, and the next day they said we have a bed for you. So they rolled me in, and they rolled me. Since they were overbooked, they were just putting in people into different floors, and they rolled me into the labor and delivery floor.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And at the time, I would think, I was in pain, I was sick, but I legit was sitting in a room with like, the sign that says like the baby, or, this, and
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I remember like walking out with Mendy, like, and seeing, the room with the newborns, and I was just like, how did I end up here for, like, I was supposed to be here to have a baby at this time. Like, it was just so mind-boggling how I would end up in that scenario. And that's more of an extreme story, but people don't understand how many times you could just get blasted with pain from different situations.
Yeah.
So just really be there for them, comfort them, and just if you know your family member or your friend, just tap into that and just care for them in the way that they need it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Look, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I'm like, my heart is just breaking listening to that.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember I remember walking down the hallway and like hearing, newborns crying. And I remember like taking myself out of the situation and looking at Mendy and I just like felt so sad for them. Like, why,
right.
this is not how it was supposed to be.
Right. Right. Okay. All right, Adele, look,
Yeah.
again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And look,
Well, thank you.
this is really, I think it's really a window into the world that you're living, and we're all just so grateful to it's to help all of us to be more sensitive. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a good rest of Hanukkah.
Thank you. You too. You too. And we all, okay, everybody, this will be up on IGTV and it'll be moved over to YouTube sometime in the next week, but it'll stay on IGTV. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good
Happy
night.
Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.